Welcome back to the Go-To Food Podcast, and today we're honoured to be joined by one of the UK's greatest chefs, who's currently Head of Creative Development at the Fat Duck, was previously Group Executive Development Chef for Gordon Ramsay, the wonderful Jocky Petrie. Jocky, I know you're doing many other things for the Fat Duck, which we'll get into as well, but after 10 years away from the Fat Duck, what's lured you back to that magical world? I mean, you were working for Gordon, and then suddenly you're back with Heston. Two different worlds.
Yeah, I know. True. First and foremost, thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for coming.
Big fan of the podcast. Love it. Great insight, I think, to the industry. I think it's fascinating. Love it. I think
we'll put that on our CV.
Yeah,
Jocky Petrie quote. Yeah. Thank you.
But to get back to the Fat Duck, I think it was one of those things. I reached out to Heston. I think it was February, March last year, just to catch up and touch base with Heston and find out how was it going, how's business, how's the things, and then he gave me the insight to where his life is and was. Just come out of being sectioned and bipolar, so it was like quite fascinating to find that, and then also to see where the business was. So I went in as a pay visit, see how things are going, and because I got such historical ties with that place and know what the opportunities are with that business, I was just like, do you know what? Let's just get in. Let's get stuck in there and get involved.
So did he reach out to you and say, do you want a job?
No, I reached out to him to just catch up. And then one thing led to another in terms of like, I had no intentions of going back to him, but it was kind of like, do you know what? It's like this place needs a bit of love and care. And it's such a legacy of the place. And it's 30 years this year, which is insane. So it'll be 30 years in August of 16. So we're looking at what we're going to do for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're doing a bit of a thing.
Yeah, so we're planning to do something. We've got our neighbours, Waterside, they're doing their 40 years of 3 stars this year. We're 30 years of restaurant, 21 years of 3 stars, which we just got recently.
Congratulations. 6 stars at the awards.
6 stars, 3 for the Fat Duck, 2 for dinner, and 1 for the Hind's Head.
Having just swooped back in, are you taking most of the credit for that?
Why not? But it is the team. Honestly, unbelievable team.
Yeah.
Real loyal team there, really hard working. Most of them have been there 5 to 6 years, if not up to 10. There's one front of the house, Fanny, who's been there 20 years.
Right. So when you went back, there were faces that you'd left 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really nice, like coming back home kind of thing. And it's
good
like
party in Glasgow? Sorry, quickly.
It was good. It was, I think, the Michelin things. It's an interesting the way they're going forward with it. With the big razzmatazz and the after party. I think it was good to meet up with everybody again. I went to a little bit of the after party, but those party days are not part of me.
Was Jason Atherton at the after party?
He wasn't. I was at a lunch.
He stormed out.
Well, I was at a lunch with them for Seafood for Scotland. I was invited, so it was nice. I went to Lauren McNaib's restaurant, and we had a lunch there. I was at a table with John Williams, actually. John Williams.
The legend.
Who got his 2 stars, which is like a long term.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of chefs there. Jason was there. Great to see them all. And it was, I don't know what happened at the end, but I just, I looked after my own business. My own team, and we congratulated ourselves and onwards and upwards and see what the year ahead lies. But,
Fat Duck's not been immune to all the changes in the industry. I mean, every person who comes on the podcast, either as a restaurateur or chef, you've got your starving costs, your wages, everything, your produce, everything's just going through the roof.
Yeah.
Obviously, nowhere is, not going to be affected by that. How tough's it been coming back into the business and trying to rework out how to go forward?
Yeah, it's been, and I think that's where we all get really creative. And I think, we can get creative and stuff, put plate on the food, but we've also got to get creative with numbers. And it's not very exciting, but I think it's exciting. Coming back into the business, thinking about numbers, but also thinking about creativity of food. And I've been there 11 months now, and in the last 11 months, we've done a lot of different things to try and get business in, really. And we did a few things we've done. Did a topsy-turvy menu, which is a thing we talked about years ago. Never did it, so I was like, let's do it. So I've come back, let's do it.
Which is what?
Yeah,
basically, you come in and you start with a bill at the table. And the bill, you get a pencil, and you get the pencil, and it's got how much you owe. And then you can colour in, or you can write on the bill, and you can eat the pencil. And you can eat the bill, because the bill is edible as well.
Yeah.
And so then you start there, and then you get your dessert. So you get your dessert first, and then you'll get a bread course. During the meal, you get a bread course, you get a pair of glasses, but everything's upside down. And the challenge is to try and butter your bread with these upside down glasses. So it's topsy-turvy. Mr. Topsy-turvy.
Is the dessert savoury or sweet?
No, because the thing with the fat duck is like the sweets. There are a lot of desserts are never really sweet.
Like the cereals are savoury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like the parsnip cereals and
Yeah.
also the bacon and egg ice cream.
Yeah.
So you can start with the bacon and egg ice
So
cream.
what was the dessert then?
I think we chopped and changed it. So it was like Black Forest gateau, which is very
Your famous creation, right?
one of the famous creations. Amongst others.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get into those later.
And then so you start with dessert, and then you go all the way to your main course, and then you finish on like the aperitif, which is the liquid nitrogen sour. So you actually finish the meal on something quite refreshing and light. So you end the meal on quite a different way around, not so full. And it's quite interesting, I mean, the dynamics of like starting with a sweet thing and finishing with a savoury or acidic, and then that's like more palatable. So we did that. We also did a mysterious menu, which was like roll the dice and you don't know what you're going to get. So that was like basically odd numbers would get odd dishes and evens. And it's like, it was down to the chef. So almost like a carte blanche kind of menu. So we instigated that, which has then led on to us introducing the a la carte menu, which we just launched 4 weeks ago. So we're open 6 days a week. We've got a la carte, which is a choice of 333. And that's like the legacy. That's like the 30 years of the fat duck. We're putting it back on the map.
Cool.
Let's get these dishes back on, retweak them, remodernize them, get them on the menu for a short period of like seasonality. So we haven't done a la carte for 16 years.
Wow.
So the whole thing of like how they work, muscle memory, everything. We've had to retrain everybody. Heston's been in, we've tasted all the dishes using his palate. And then, so we've introduced them. And then the idea is they'll go on the menu for a certain amount of time. And then we'll change them for seasonal, and then we'll stick them in the wall, Hall of Fame, never to come back on.
Nice.
Kind of thing.
So like
and
retiring the shirt almost.
That's
like,
it.
Yeah.
And then it'll give us the incentive to like get some new stuff on the menu.
So what have you done to like those lasagna of Longestine or whatever?
Oh
like,
my God.
To up it.
That is amazing. It's quite amazing when you look back on the recipes, like think, how can we improve on something that we took off because we thought we did everything.
Yeah.
And so now technology's come in, ingredients have come in. It's just simple things like, let's use rich yolks for the pasta. Whereas before they were just using normal yolks, and that gives a different dimensional appearance. The availability of langoustines and tweaking the cooking temperatures of that. And then there's also the abundance of truffles you get now. Like back then, we're talking about maybe 20 years ago, truffles was seen as like highly prized. But now truffles is just so abundant and so available. So just let's go generous with it. Let's go over the top and let's make it proper value for money, proper restaurant.
And is that cheaper than the tasting menu?
Yeah, so we've done everything opposite what I think a lot of people are doing nowadays. We've reduced the price. So we're open 6 days a week. As opposed to 5. 6 days a week. A la carte is $195 for lunch, $225 for dinner, and then the tastings the journey menu, which is like all the hits, is $295. Whereas before it was a lot more money. So we've kind of reduced it, making it more accessible. Celebration of this 30 years of the fat duck. So we just want to like, let's come on in. Let's
get as many people in.
Get as many people in, and just introduce. Also, I think the last 10 years, the fat duck's probably gone a little bit quiet on the social front. And it's like that's a gap. That's a 10-year block to try and introduce that to a new base of
Is it trying to make it like sexy again? Like we were saying when Ashley came on, molecular gastronomy is like kind of quietened down a bit. It's not as innovative in the eyes of some as it was back in the day. Like, how do you make that sexy again?
I know, it gets such bad press. I was thinking about that the other day.
We try to give it good press.
Whenever
we do,
I know. Whenever anybody mentions molecular gastronomy, it gets like a black cloud that comes over it. But and we were kind of against it, as in the fact that we're really against that terminology of molecular gastronomy back in the day, because it was coined from Alan Davison. First coined that phrase
about you guys.
Oh no, about molecular gastronomy and Hervé Thies, the scientist, and then and then the press picked up on it, trying to label stuff that we were doing, whether it's Ferran or what we were doing, and it was kind of like it was frowned upon, and we hated that kind of like description. But in reality, it was using science. It was using the application of science in cooking, and cooking is science. Anything you do, from blanching the green bean to working out an egg yolk.
That's so true, actually.
So it's like it's trying to like. I think that's the way you're trying to make it sexy. We're just trying. We were always on that journey of discovery of food, and it coins a phrase, like a bit corny, but we were trying to discover how food worked and what happened when you ate it and what happened when you cooked it that way or this way. But first and foremost, and still to this day, was always to make the food delicious. It was always that drive of deliciousness as opposed to technique. And I think that's where the bad side of the molecular gastronomy came from, was that everybody drove for technique.
Yeah.
And I was trying to reminisce about it before coming on the podcast, going through some of the notes. And when you think about that early 2000s, I think that period of 95 to 2005 was like absolute chaos. There was real energy, I think, about the industry, and we were discovering new things, and we were tapping into a lot of new things. And when you're even the pop world to the music world to the food world, it was all forever changing. Yeah. Marco had his 3 stars, and Heston was on board, and Gordon was on board. And it's like people were doing many different things and discovering many things. And I think what was happening in the food world has not happened since then. But I think it needs a bit of a shake-up. I think that's where we make the molecular gastronomy kind of sexy again. Yeah. Or what is the new thing of food?
Yeah.
Well, you've got a great opportunity because, like you said, there's a 10-year gap almost.
Yeah.
Where like people haven't been so on it. Yeah. So it means there's a generation of people who might have got into food in those 10 years who can now rediscover like the extraordinary stuff.
Yeah.
There's those little pranksters, Jolly.
Yeah, yeah.
And they did a video, these 2 very enthusiastic young men who did a video with Heston.
Exactly.
And watching them try all those things.
And
it kind of really like reignited in me that excitement of when I first heard about Went to the Fat Duck.
Yeah.
Which had maybe become a bit jaded. And then watching them experience it, I was like, oh, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's that like...
And that's the thing with the Fat Duck. A lot of stuff you would say hasn't changed on the menu when you read it, but every dish is continually tweaked and improved on.
Yeah.
And we don't, and they haven't done, shouted about it for over the years. But getting Jolly in, for example, doing with advertising, but they did a great thing and insight into what we do and have done.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's kind of like an open doors, whereas the Duck's always been closed doors for a long time.
Yeah.
And this opened it, but also at the same time, Heston was there. And Heston actually, the idea was Heston was to go and just like talk to them for a couple of courses. But then he just sat down and he spoke to them and he just shit the shit and had a chit chat with them. And it was like, that's an opportunity that Heston doesn't really has done with any journalist. No. So it's kind of like, do you know what? Let's break down the boundaries. And I think we even served the sausage roll to the guy who was the cameraman because he loved Greg's sausage rolls. And it's like, that's the whole thing about the Duck. It was always about fun and delicious food. Yeah. And it's like, get rid of the stuffiness. And it was like, break down the boundaries. And it's like, you're here to have fun. We're going to look after you, sit yourself down and let's go for it. And I think it's always had this perceived perception of like, really hard to get in, really expensive.
Yeah. So, but you also can't be apologetic because it is a 3 Michelin star restaurant. Do you know what I mean? It's getting the balance right between obviously attracting people in, but also being like, it's 3 fucking stars. Like, you've got to be prepared to pay a certain amount, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I know. And also the hidden prices that go into the Fat Duck, we've got a lot of added expenses that not normal 3-star restaurants would normally have. But even just down to the menu or the little added extras we put on that are kind of like part and parcel of the menu that you take home with you, but not normal restaurants of that caliber would actually be perceived as being given away. But everything that's done at like Fat Duck is bespoke and handmade.
You never used to hear anyone saying they didn't think it was worth the money.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think.
No.
Yeah. I know it's kind of...
Even though it's expensive.
Yeah, I know. It's
like,
kind of like...
People were like, yeah.
It is weird though. It's cool to hate it in a weird way, isn't it? Not hate that place, but like kind of that molecular gastronomy at the moment. It's kind of like, let's go back to sort of, a stripped back 3-course seasonal menu, whatever, simple cooking.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're testing out. So that's what we're going to test out. See how this 3-course goes down. Yeah. And this a la carte. But it's also great for the kitchen. So now they'll get an insight into like cooking different things, different techniques. Brilliant. Whereas before the tasting menu can get a bit mundane. And so we're here to educate as well and inform and make it also exciting, not just front of house, but back of house as well too.
Do we have anything to refresh our palates, Ben?
Yeah, I've got like just a classical selection of red wine, white wine, or a non-alcoholic beer. Would you be interested in any of those, Jocky?
Non-alcoholic, I don't drink.
Yeah, little lucky saint.
But I don't drink any of the non-alcoholic beers.
Oh, no.
I'll give it a taste.
Give it a taste.
I'll give it a taste.
Give it a try.
Just hold it.
It was actually one of the races I did. They were sponsoring it. I was
really?
like, what
Lucky
is that
Saint?
Lucky Saint? I was
Really?
like, I didn't know about Lucky Saint. I was like, why is it a beer company?
Yeah, it's half decent.
Okay.
Well, give it a sample.
Yeah, perfect.
White, actually. Or do you want to open the red?
Will you, Freddie?
I don't know. Or are you going to have a look?
Viognier.
Are you going to have a non-alcohol? Oh, I love it. Is it cold?
It's ice cold.
Yeah, I love some Viognier. Why not? How's Heston doing? And is he still involved creatively? Obviously, you were mentioning his palate there, being one of the greatest ever. But is he still involved creatively? I mean, everyone knows what's been going on with him in the last year.
Yeah.
And you said off air he's recovering.
Yeah.
But, like, is he still involved?
Yeah.
Does he get in the kitchen? Does he cook? Does he?
Yeah, well, you're not going to see Heston so much in the kitchen.
No, not
cooking.
doing service, but I mean...
No, but it's like he's now back more than ever before in terms of the last probably 6 to 7 years. And so he's like back in, particularly since this a la carte resurgence. So kind of like that. And I go back to his palate, and I think of all these great chefs, they always have a great memory and they have a great palate. Yeah. And it's incredible to see how they evolve and how they communicate and how they talk about and what their aspirations are. And that's the other thing for coming back to the fact that was like all those goals and things he wanted to do. Yeah, I'll make them happen. So I'm like, let's do it. I know what is possible. I know what his insight is. Well, let's make it happen. So he's been heavily involved in the tasting and direction, and giving us kind of like. Navigating his way through, okay, where do we want to go with this menu, with these dishes? And also we question each other. Is this good enough? And so it's like having that relationship.
But I'm guessing the test kitchen, when you used to head that up, is that still existent?
It's not.
It can't be, can it?
It's not as big as it used to be.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we'd had 3 test kitchens, up to about 8 chefs.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I was thinking we had up to about 18 projects at any one time happening between supermarkets, TVs, restaurants, new openings.
Of course, you had all the sort of Waitrose stuff.
All that Waitrose
madness,
stuff. Yeah, and we were doing outside catering and all this sort of stuff. So we had about, and there's a big team there. Yeah. So the team is a lot streamlined now, especially after COVID. I think they had a lot of changes on the dynamics of it. So we're in the position of, we've got about 3 people now based on the development side. 1 looking after dinner and then 2 looking after all the other things of the group. And so it's a slow burner. We're just going to work out how we build that up again. Yeah. But I think majority of the development now is getting done in the kitchens as opposed to off-site. And I think developments within that kitchen environment actually happen a lot quicker and more efficiently. When you're in a separate kitchen, a development kitchen, you can go way off-piste and you go on this amazing journey of like development. You start one idea and you go on, I'd say like a circle, and you go around and all these mistakes will happen. And then majority always come back to the beginning.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close, but you have to go on this painful journey because...
Do you have to, or is it like a luxury to have to...
It's a luxury.
Right.
It's a luxury, but when you're in the kitchen environment, it's a bit more fast-paced and you've got to get it done. So it's like, okay, we've got this target deadline, and chefs work best on a mise en place list and a deadline.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's where a lot of our development process came in, with like hitting those deadlines, whether it's a TV program or the Waitrose, or supermarket, you had to have that deadline, which made it happen. But also on the back of that, when we were in the TV world, it allowed us to investigate even further because they had a research facility as well for the program, which allowed us to go even further into research, which then created iconic dishes like meat fruit. Yeah. Do you know that came in the back of a TV program?
Really?
Yeah. And that was basically, we made a fruit bowl, meat fruit. It was bull's testicles, which was dipped in plum jelly. And then it was chicken with parfait and the mandarin. And then it was, we had pears and we had grapes, like ham hock and grapes. And the idea was like, it was all medieval where fruit was seen as like a luxury. And it was a play on, they used to play on making meat fruit. Pomme d'Or it was called, which was apple, looked like an apple. It's a meat pie glazed in this green paste cooked on the spit roast. And it was served as a bowl of apples or fruit, and he picked up the apple, and it was a meat. So it was more of the shock and awe. One, they present you a bowl of fruit, and you're like, oh my goodness, how could they afford all this fruit? Yeah. And then when you eat it, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a joke. This is a joke on a joke. Yeah. So it was kind of those, it was delving into that like history, which allowed us to things like dinner and also other things for, what do you call it, Heinz Head. So
has your brain always worked like that? Because obviously you've now become one of the most respected chefs in the country, but like, were you always food obsessed? Were you always like a creator pulling stuff apart, trying to remake stuff?
Yeah, it's quite interesting questions. It's another one that I'm thinking about because I've listened to the podcast and think of what questions to ask. Because you never reflect on the past, but I think chefs nowadays have this kind of like same story where they started not very good at school, wanted to leave, join the army or navy or the forces, and just wanted to be around this environment with comradeship and feel wanted. And I think I was always like that annoying little person in the kitchen going, well, what happens if we did that? Or what if you asked the question, is that what it's supposed to taste like? Which was always like, frowned upon.
Yeah.
To actually, why would you ever ask that question?
But that was you. That you were always you
a
had
bit
that
of
mindset. Yeah.
I think it was always a bit of that annoying personality of like, is this the right thing we're doing here? You know, is that possible? Or can we try it with that? And it's like, well, no, that's the recipe.
What about growing up?
Come on, then.
What was the food around the table? Any good memories, bad memories? Your parents used to cook?
I think it was the standard back then in the 80s. I think it was like there was the Sunday roast, and I think the meatballs. And I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland, so a very remote village.
Yeah.
And I've never disrespected my mother's cooking, or my dad was never much of a cook, but I'd never disrespect it. But it was super simple. But I was always like on that basis of like always being investigative on what was in the cupboards. And even if it was a pot noodle, I'd be adding salt and vinegar hula hoops to it.
Yeah, really, right.
I'm going, oh my God, that is amazing. You got texture there. Looking back at, not then thinking, no, that's amazing what I'm doing. You're just like,
you're pimping it up.
You're pimping it up.
Yeah.
And it would suck up the juices, and it would be crunchy and crispy and soggy, and it's like salt and vinegar in the pot noodle. Amazing.
Wow. Well, let's move on to your
Creative
go-to
minds up there,
drink.
Freddie.
Firstly, starting with your go-to cocktail.
So cocktail, no longer drink.
No.
Haven't drunk for years.
And why is that? Just had enough? I know you were a bit of a party boy back in the day.
Well, weren't we all?
Yeah.
Some of us still are.
Yeah, still going.
Some of you still are.
Yeah.
So weren't we all? That was how I always want to put it. But it's like, it's just done. You know, I no longer aspirations to do it. Did love cocktails. Did love hanging around with cocktail bartenders.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like very much like-minded people. I thought the thought process, how they looked at drinks, is how I looked at food.
Yeah, tinkerers, like how they.
Yeah, and it was at that time, early 2000s, amazing. Particularly Tony Congario. He was a good friend at the time and inspired each other to like push boundaries. Actually, that's how the idea of the whiskey wine gums for the Fat Duck came about.
Really?
There was one morning we had a meeting that, when he was working at Zuma.
Yeah.
And he was like, why has nobody ever made wine gums with alcohol? Oh my God.
Makes sense.
Let's do it. Yeah, why not? It's called wine gums. Let's make it with alcohol.
Yeah.
So that's what led into the whiskey wine gums. But I was saying my go-to alcohol, and there's a little bit of plug, but the Fat Duck do an incredible non-alcoholic pairing. And it's really thought out. And it's been years of practice. And I've got one drink called Free Spirit, which is just grape wine juice infused with toasted hazelnuts. And then we make a smoked oak water ourselves, mix them together, add some spices of star anise, let it infuse. And it's like the most amazing Chardonnay without any alcohol in it. And I think
can you buy it?
No, but we are planning to put it onto our online shop.
Yeah, man, get it.
So
that sounds amazing.
We want to just make sure again it's shelf stable, and then start doing that because there's so much work. Again, it's another thing the Fat Duck has done over the years. We've just not talked about it. So it's like that non-alcoholic pairing and the work that goes into it. I think it's delicious and beautiful, and that'll be my go-to.
Kind of like Conclave opening up the Catholic Church. You guys need to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, slowly. I think open door, shut door. Open door, shut door. That's the way I'm trying to perceive it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But
nice. Say Freddie and I coming around for dinner.
Yeah.
What would you be putting out for us? Sort of pre-dinner snacks. Would you be offering us a drink? What does it look like?
What, a drink or actually snacks?
Snacks, canapes, drink. Like
So-
how would you approach that sort of thing?
Nowadays, for me, it sounds a bit boring, but nowadays, for me, for the pre-dinner snacks or party snacks, I deal with kids. I've got 2 kids.
Yeah, right,
So you'll be getting hummus and crudities
Beautiful.
and triangle sandwiches.
Tell me that.
That's what
I like triangle sandwich.
and you'll be getting a jelly cake because it'll be a birthday celebration. You ever heard of a jelly cake?
No.
My sister came up with it. And it's like, you just get the packet jelly.
Yeah.
Just don't put all the water in. And so you basically make a rainbow cake. And you set each layer with half the amount of water that it says in the packet.
Yeah.
So you set one layer, set it, another layer, set it. And then you'll get this like in a cake tin, demold it, and you slice it, and it'll be rainbow coloured. And it's jelly.
She should be
And
working with
kids,
that duck.
kids,
They
absolutely.
go absolutely mental.
They're like, what is a jelly cake? So I'm just trying to work out, okay, maybe we can come up with like
Fair play.
supermarket product.
Yeah.
But it's credit to my sister Elaine. So there you go. So you get jelly cake, crudities, hummus, triangle sandwiches,
No need for food after.
and fizzy pop.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sounds great.
That sounds unbelievable.
Well, you guys do little sandwiches at the Fat Duck. What are those?
Yeah, we
Because
do.
they're triangle sandwiches, but what are they?
It was like the most. It was based on an old historical recipe called toast sandwich,
Yeah.
which basically is what it says on the tin. It was a piece of toast, buttered both sides, and then 2 bits of sandwich, like soft bread, either side, and then cut into triangles. So when you eat it, it's almost like a crisp sandwich. So it's crispy in the middle, and then it's soft on the outside. So that's the historical recipe. So we just went off-piste on it, and let's make little triangle sandwiches that had bone marrow butter, egg with Savoy mustard, chopped egg white with mayonnaise, lots of truffle, pickled cucumber in those layers, and then we cut it into tiny little triangles, and then we serve it on with a Mad Hatter tea party broth, cup of tea with a fake egg. So it's like this almost thing of like being big and small. So the sandwiches are so small and so delicate and so many flavors and textures in there, but you're a big human being eating these tiny little sandwiches. And we've done recently, we just introduced a truffle and chicken liver parfait sandwich, but done it in a little, almost like, I think it's one of your questions, like meal deal packet. You know, little sandwich packets, but it's like made of leather.
A little meal deal.
Yeah, I've done a little meal deal.
Can you eat the
sandwich?
package?
No, you can't. That's the next stage. But little packs, it's done with like a leather feel paper.
Yeah.
And it's even got a little sticker on it. Looks like a high street supermarket sticker, fat duck one, and it's got this sandwich in it. So you have this. It's basically about. It's about looking at your environment and just focusing on what you're eating and not being distracted by anything else. So you get this little tiny little sandwich that you can just. It's like called mindful eating. So it's one of the things Heston's been talking. There's quite a few things Heston's been researching over the last 10 years. That now my job is like, okay, let's make these to life.
Right.
And one of them is microbiome. One of them is neurodiverse within the kitchen environment, and one of them is like mindful eating. And it's mindful, so we called it the mindful sandwich. So it's on the basis of this Alice in Wonderland sandwich, but we've got beautiful flavors of chicken liver and truffle. Tiny little sandwich that will come to your table, and so you can open it. So the whole ritual of opening the sandwich, memory of that, and you get this tiny sandwich. It's like a one-bite sandwich, but it's a massive flavour when you eat it. So it's about just taking time, slow everything down, enjoy the experience, enjoy the sandwich. So it's a 3-star sandwich.
Do you still see a lot of people cry when they eat at your restaurant? I mean, in a good way, not in a bad way.
Yeah, it's quite. I think it's. We've had a few people over the years cry. In particular, one of the dishes, the sound of the sea, captures a lot of memories of like the sound of the sea while we were eating this dish that looks like with the sand and the seafood. And everyone's got their own different perspective on it. And we've actually really tried to look at, because everyone's got their own memories of sea, whether it's the Mediterranean Sea or it's the west coast of Ireland Sea or South American. So it does tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people. People still kind of relate to it. Emotional, we don't try and push it, but there is definitely people who get over emotional on some of the dishes.
Just thinking about the sound of the sea, for some reason, Ashley Palm Watts jumps into my mind. You guys were becoming as famous as Heston was at the time. Did that cause any problems in the team? And, you know, because suddenly you guys went from unknowns really to like on all these TV shows. Famous.
Yeah, I love the question. I never ever saw it that way. I never saw the thing of the fame. I think the thing about what we were doing in Bray and Berkshire, it was like we were in a bubble, and it was quite hard to see in the outside world.
Right, but you were so locked into what you were doing.
We were definitely locked in, and we were very little of getting exposed to the outside world. In particular, my whole world was the fat duck and everything that surrounded it. From when I joined in 2001, I was just like, even when I started and I said to Heston, like, because I started there with no money. I was in debt from my previous job. I was like, look, I'll work extra because I need extra money. So I'd work on my days off. And he had a brasserie in Bray called the Riverside Brasserie. So I used to work there on a Monday because the fat duck used to be closed on a Sunday night and a Monday. And so I'd work there on the Monday, and I was still skint, so I used to work in a local pub in Maidenhead. So I was working on the Sunday night at the Maidenhead, and then I would do lunch at the brasserie, and then Monday night I would do at the pub. Wow. And then I'd be working the rest of the week at the Fat Duck. And then I said to him, look, I want to work more on my days off. So then he did the family food cookbook, and so I did the photo shoot for that. He did all the recipes, but I went and did the photo shoot, and then that was it. I just got more, I was just like, oh my God, I love this. Yeah. I don't want to care about anything else that's happening in the outside world. And I just fully immersed myself into that environment. And then over the years, we did got onto those bits in the TV programs, but never seen it as like a fame thing. We just seen it as like, I suppose that later on when my schedule kind of changed, 'cause I'd never had a weekend off. And it was like when I eventually got weekends off later on, it was kind of like, oh my God, what's this in the outside world? And it wasn't until I actually left the Fat Duck, and then I was just like, oh my God, I was in this actual world for like 12 years.
Yeah.
I'd never actually seen a lot of the outside world.
Yeah.
It was quite hard to even to like communicate because you communicated in the Fat Duck frame of mind. Yeah. Not brainwashed. Yeah. Maybe to a bit brainwashed, but it was quite fascinating because you were just like, nothing else mattered. No.
Yeah.
Nothing ever mattered.
Funny you say that. Because Ashley said, I think when he first got a Sunday off, he just went back into the restaurant because he didn't know what to do. Like,
yeah, because he would actually, and also we would have a competition with Ash, like who would be first in to take the containers,
really,
and stack them in the fridge or hide them. Because I was in the pastry in the back.
So you were kind of brainwashed in a way. Like, Heston was this kind of all glory, sort of glorified ruler, like a Führer.
Or hero.
Yeah, because I even remember when I came for the interview, and it was like I was coming for the interview, and it was like that's when I was seeing some of the dishes, and I was like, what's really going on here?
Yeah,
and that's when there was the early days of the egg and bacon ice cream, and it all made sense of like, well, everybody cooks their egg anglaise to 82, which is the temperature that scrambles egg and gives you eggy flavour. So why would you cook your ice cream to make it taste eggy? So he would cook his ice creams at a lower temperature, so it wasn't eggy. And I was like, that's pretty genius.
Yeah.
And then, but if you want to make it eggy, what goes with egg? Bacon. Oh, why put it as an ice cream? And it's like one of those things you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I still remember this day, he come from the interview, and he's like, he just came up to me, he says, oh, this is what we're doing with lamb. And he cut me a slice, and I pulled this lamb loin up, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, how come it looks raw, but it's cooked?
Yeah.
And he'd been, we just got these water bath things. And we're just playing about this water bath thing. So we're trying to work on the temperature and how low we can go, yet cook it, but keep the structure intact. And I was like, as I ate it, and I was like, that is insane. But we're eating that piece of lamb, and then we had the lamb sauce, and the technique of doing the lamb sauce with the white lamb stock and dark lamb stock, and the way how we cooked it under pressure, I was just like, that's all the things. Like, why has nobody done that before? Why has nobody questioned like that before? And still to this day, even this thing, we're just tweaking. Even langoustine cooking we're doing right now, we're just doing the marginal increase and decreases and just like re-educating ourselves. Okay, what is the best thing we're trying to get here from this? And what temperature?
So you're still using the water baths? Or not as much?
Not as much. Our meat cooking now, we're doing it in the pan. Yeah.
Really?
There'll be some meats, we do the fish, the turbot, we're doing it in the start in the bath, but then we finish it on the pan. But we're also aging it. And so it's just we're trying to get this like perfect cook for everybody. The water baths again frowned upon, but they were heavily abused. We used it for certain things, but not for everything. And
you mean other people jumped on it wholesale?
Yeah, and it just all went a bit. I think even things like the eggs, I just like personally hated the eggs. Cooked to like that snotty egg that you'd get. So it's kind of like we used it for some things, but then you just labelled with it, and it's like so that's why we're trying to break that label off. We're going back to the basics.
Are there things when you go in the kitchen now, like technological advances that are exciting in the same way that you guys found 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Is there no?
Like, are you looking at stuff, that it's kind of not commonly used, but like you guys are looking at it thinking we could do something fun with this?
Yeah.
Or is all of that kind of development happened?
I think there is stuff, and we're still needing to discover it. We've been kind of, I'll say, the Duck's not been the forefront of looking at that, and now I'm bringing that back into the Fat Duck's forefront of like getting everybody to start thinking, okay, why are we not looking at that? Why are we not looking at this? There's so much availability now as well to find that access, but it is limited. Even though things when we made it aerated chocolate, we're still using the same oven or container we have many years ago. We're still using the same one. I'm like, we should be using newer technology.
There must be something better.
There must be more. Yeah. That's exactly what I've been asking. There must be something more. So that's it. Now we're on this like
so that process
journey.
Starts again. Yeah.
Start again. It's just like don't just sit in your laurels. Let's just go for it. Yeah. And we've got the team, and it's using those talented people in the team to be part of that journey. Yeah. So it's kind of like a new chapter.
Why were you bankrupt when you joined? Because you'd come from the little in Washington, right? In America.
Yeah.
But like, what went wrong in America, or what went right? I mean,
America.
Or did you party too hard? Or?
Well,
because Stuart Ralston said he basically did that when he went to work for Gordon in New York.
Yeah.
He spent 5 years just literally staying up all night every night and spending all his money. He came back and he was bankrupt, but he had a great.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky because I had the J1 visa, so I could only ever stay for 18 months.
Right.
But so even to go to the Little Washington was mad in terms of the interview. So this is back in the day before any, mobile phones and social media. So it was all done through an interview process where I wrote away to a bunch of, because I was working in Relais Chateau hotels, which at that time was quite easy to go around the world. And that's the reason why I started cooking.
Yeah.
So you could jump around Relais Chateaus. And I wrote to these Relais Chateaus from New Zealand to Canada to America to South Africa. And this one, Inlet Washington, got back to me within a week.
Wow.
And I had an interview set up the week after in Manchester. So I went to Manchester. I got there early. The guy gave me, these are the questions we're going to ask you. I was like, what? And so then he's like, and then I had to go up to a bedroom. At the end of the bed, he had a camera, just like this. What? He would have a camera at the end of the bed, and he was videoing me. Sat at the end of the bed, Jesus. And he'd be asking me all
so
these.
You got the right meeting.
That's what I was like. One, I've never been to Manchester before.
Yeah.
Two, I was just like, what is going on here? This is a bit random.
Yeah.
And he'd be asking me loads of questions, and he would ask me like, what's 10% of like 660? Or something like random questions. You're like, what? And he just wanted to see your reaction. Then got the job, God knows how. And then it was quite interesting because there's a lot of expats that had actually started at the same time. So basically they'd gone around Europe, hoovered around a bunch of chefs, and then shipped them all up to America, to Virginia, to this place called Little Washington. Yeah. And at the time, didn't know what we were walking into. First and foremost, they put me on KP duty. So I came from a 1-star being a pastry chef, and I was KP. And I was like, I think it's because they didn't understand me. Because I was like the mad jock.
Yeah, right.
It was like, Mad Willie from Simpsons. That's what was like kind of getting labelled as.
Groundskeeper Willie.
And it was like Groundskeeper Willie.
Yeah.
And I was putting pot wash, and I was like, what is this? I was actually starting to love it because I was actually making lots of money. Because you got paid by the hour. Yeah. Anyway, I realised I'm not here to wash pots. Yeah. So then I got into the kitchen, and it was quite interesting because as Europeans, we're used to working 80, 90 hours a week, whereas the Americans were all unionised. And so they were having to do 40. So we were getting all the extra hours. Oh. At some point, I was on call. So in your day off, you're on call. Imagine being a chef on call in the middle of nowhere. So this is in the middle of the Blue Ridge Mountains as well.
Amazing.
And there was no transport. It sounds beautiful, but it was just like, there's nothing. You're like, it was just like, the village I lived in called Sperryville actually had the Dukes of Hazzard. Cutter Lee, the mechanic. He had his little house there, and every year they had the General Lee. That was kind of like the highlight of the year when the General Lees would all come meet up in this village. But then that whole era of the Inlet Washington it was probably the craziest place I'd ever worked in terms of like I've been to the Fat Duck, but it was a previous Fat Duck, so we'd all had Dalmatian print aprons, trousers that was taken from the owner's dogs, the print, and then we all wore them. We all used to have yoga before service, and I was thinking before I went there, it's a 9-bedroom hotel. This is going to be easy. It's not going to be that busy a place. Yeah. We were doing up to 220 people a night. Christ. And it was all the top people from Washington, D.C., politicians and IT people.
There was only 3-star in Washington, D.C. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was the place to come. And this guy, the credit to him, Patrick O'Connell, the chef owner, 1978, it was a gas station. There's a rundown gas station, and he got so influenced by his travels in Europe and traveled on Europe, so obsessed with food and hospitality, and ate at all the 3 stars and in France in particular, and got influences from them, and then got this great British designer to design this into a country house hotel. They had one room that was based on a dining room in the Titanic. And the whole learning process there was like the front of the house had a thing called the Bible, which took you 2 years to learn. Why? And then you become a full cut. And a full cut was the person who was like the captain of the dining room. That was a minimum 2 years of research and learning. Jesus. And it's like, I was just like, this is another world. Yeah. And it was one of those places like you couldn't start until your dedicated time. So normally we were used to Europe, or we're just going to come in early. If you were starting at 3 o'clock, you couldn't come in at 2. The chef would kick you out. So you could only come in at 3, and then you had to run. But you had to it was one of those ones where before your shift started at 3 o'clock, you'd be there all day, all morning, thinking, okay, what jobs I need to do, how do I need to do it, when do I need to do it, how do you win the run? And I was like, when you got, and everybody there, it was like going over the, I'll see it as like going to war. Yeah. Over the trenches. You'd be sat there thinking, and everybody would be sat in the dining room at like 2:30, someone would be messing about. I'll just be like sitting there thinking, oh my goodness.
Planning.
plan. And as soon as you went out that door, you ran. And you ran because service started at 5 o'clock. That's the first sitting.
2
That was 110 people would come at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6.
And what food were you making?
It was like, well, equivalent to 3-star food. There was an a la carte menu. And you just, it was one of those ones you had a team in the morning that did prep because it wasn't for lunch, which everybody had to do that shift. And it's the hardest shift. People think the breakfast and prep easy. It was so hard because you got deliveries and you're unboxing everything and also packing everything away and peeling grapes and Charlotte Brunoise, and then you got to go. And if you haven't finished your job, you can't go home. So sometimes you're up there at 10 o'clock at night. And then, but it was that kind of like mindset of like, this is insane. And it overtook your whole life. Yeah. And then we were working really hard, but we were also partying really hard. And we were spending money, and we were buying things like nice cars and PlayStations. And like, you're only there for a year and a half. Yeah. You don't have to be save your money because it was tax free. Because you get a tax back. So it's one of those things, but we just like, because we're a whole bunch of expats living together, we just like...
went a bit wild. Yeah,
it just went a bit wild. But learning curve, I was just so immersed into that idea of like, that was pressure I'd never experienced before, even though I worked on the Michelin Star before.
Yeah. When you did join the Fat Duck in 2001, I mean, what led you to joining there? Because Ashley said he'd eaten there and was just like blown away. Yeah. But what was your kind of experiences?
I had a friend of a friend who was a sous chef there at the time. And I came back from America. I was working in the brasserie in Nottingham. And he said, look, there's a job for a pastry chef. And I was just like, I kind of heard of this guy doing his bacon and egg ice cream. And I was like, what's going on? Okay, let's do it. I wasn't really interested in working in the brasserie. It was kind of like that decisive moment. Do I want to make some money or do I want to continue on my career? Yeah. And so I made that decision. Do you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So I went down there. At the time, I was driving this tiny little Metro diesel. Remember the Metros? Not minis, but Metros. Like a horrific thing. Yeah. So I drove down there in this little Metro, went for the interview, and it was just like, that's when I got inspired. And I was just like, I'm going to take this. Yeah. I'm going to take this job. And I went back, and then I think I started in November, and then close to Christmas, and then the January came, and it was me and another guy, and they put me in pastry, and I was like, I don't want to do pastry. I kept on being put in pastry. Everywhere I've gone, always been labelled as the pastry chef, even still to this day.
What is that?
It's just because that's the thing that I did, but I was never properly trained. No. I was never trained. I only ever did the job. I only learnt on the job, and it's kind of, I fell into pastry because one, nobody wanted to do that section in the kitchen. So I always kind of fell into that section and took over it. And then so at Fat Duck, I was like determined, I don't want to do pastry. Put me into pastry. Jocky, you're only going to be there for six months. I was like, great, I only want to do 6 months. But then there was another guy there that I found out later, he was going for the same job as me. So Heston employed us at the same time. But above us, there was this French guy who was a pastry chef. So I was just like, wait a minute. So I'm quite competitive. I was like, so this guy's after my job, and maybe I can get that guy's job. So then I was like, I'm determined I'm going to get the pastry chef job, and I'll get this other guy. Yeah. I'll put him to the side.
How long did that take you?
3 months. Yeah, 3 months. The little pastry guy, that one he wasn't really interested in it, but the pastry chef, French, not going to stereotype French pastry chefs, but he was quite arrogant in the way. Yeah. And there's one time they were watching the World Cup in the kitchen. Yeah. And the French were beating England, I think, in the game. And the French guy was going, amazing. And Heston was like, this is not on. No. You need to go. And I was like, I'll have his job. Yeah, perfect. So it was all over a football game.
Over the football.
So I was just like, let's go for it. So I took it.
I mean, you quickly became head of pastry. Yeah. At that point, was the pastry as crazy as the savouries or not?
Pastry, our job, and I don't know, I'm not going to blame myself for it, but I definitely pushed it in terms of, I always said to Heston I would work above and beyond. I'll do stuff extra on the days off and everything. So that's when the continuation of like development. So more and more jobs got put onto me. You say, try this, try that, do this, do that. So then lo and behold, about maybe 65% of that menu came from the pastry section, if not 70%. So the nitro sour at the beginning came from pastry. The double jelly came from pastry. The set of the quail jellies came from pastry. So we all hit at the beginning of service, and then we'll hit at the end of service. So we had to be ready. We had to be first in, and we had to be last out. Cool. And I was just like, but that was that whole drive. So I'm always been like that inquisitive nature. Then led us to being really busy, but led on to some gastronomical amazing, iconic dishes. I think that's the other thing about the Fat Duck. To fly that flag is not many restaurants in this world have so many dishes that you can relate to just that restaurant. So it's like a little bit of like, let's fly our little flag of like, be proud of this fact
100%
of doing that. So it's like, even things like the double jelly, that just came about. The double jelly is the beetroot orange jelly. Yeah. One looks like beetroot, one looks like
Did you
orange.
guys go eat at other like molecular gastronomical places to get inspiration or not?
One thing I made sure I didn't do was study El Bulli books. I still to this day don't have an El Bulli book.
Yeah, really.
And all credit, love El Bulli.
Yeah.
And I think it was fascinating at that time. They were all over the press. Yeah. They were the leaders in it all. And there was sometimes this thing we've seen as the Fat Duck and El Bulli competing with each other. There was never that. Actually, Albert Adria came and did a stage at the Fat Duck back in the day, in the heydays, in the early days. And he was even blown away by, you guys do maximum effort for maximum flavour.
Yeah.
Their position was like maximum effect, not for maximum flavour. And he was like fascinated by how we worked, particularly when we had sheds out the back and we didn't have a big massive team and everything was done in situ in the kitchen. So that was really inspiring to have those people come over. But we had great opportunities. We did travel the world. We went as far as New Zealand and Spain for the Madrid Fusion and all these awards and got to meet like-minded chefs. But we never wanted to be competing or not associating ourselves with us, but like we respected what they did, but we didn't. And that's another thing, the Madrid Fusion, I was there with Heston when we got the 3rd star, which that story was insane of doing that. So we were at that time, which I didn't know, but it was at that time where it was really difficult to even get the wages paid. Heston was saying he was on the plane thinking, how are we going to pay these wages? And we flew out to this event called Madrid Fusion. And at the time, it was supposed to be one of the biggest shows for culinary. And that's when Ferran Adria was really getting big.
Yeah.
And they invited us out there and we did a demo. And the demo was on stage with Heston. It was myself and Heston that went out there and did it. And we talked about triple cooked chips and we injected them with ketchup with a syringe. We cooked them in hay, first of all, and then did the whole vacuuming and then triple cooking technique. And then we did ice filtration with the quail jelly. And then we talked about some of the dishes of the double jelly. And then we did the presentation of like how acid affects perception of flavour. So we had the beetroot pâte de fruits, which is like a fruit pasto. One with high acid and one with low acid. High acid tasted like blackcurrant, low acid tasted like beetroot. But it's exactly the same jelly. And it's the effect of acid. And then we had talking about the flavour molecule of benzaldehyde, which is an almond. And so we put them into balloons, and we got everybody in the audience to blow up the balloons and let go of the balloons to smell the benzaldehyde, which smells like marzipan. Yeah. And we had that in a dish with cherries and almonds. But we were on stage and Heston's talking. It's like a 30-minute presentation. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's like Alain Ducasse there, there's Joe Robuchon there, there's Adria there. And they're all blowing balloons. Yeah. And I was just like, what's going on? Pretty mad.
Amazing.
Did the presentation, standing ovation, incredible. Michel Roux was in the audience, got up. I started talking, Michel Roux is senior, God bless him. And he started talking about, this is my neighbour, we're not competitors, this guy's the future, this is what's going to be happening with the food. And he just gave loads of credit. And I know that we were just like blown away. Wow. So Heston was getting bombarded with the press. And the world press was there. So this is before, again, Instagram, social media. Yeah. Nick Lander was there in the audience from Financial Times. He took us out for lunch, said, look, I can see you getting bombarded with the press. Let's go out for lunch. Went out for lunch, just had a simple tapas. Going back in the taxi, and there's about, 5 of us in this taxi all crammed up. Heston gets a call and goes off the phone. He's like, oh my God, I've just had Michelin on the phone. He's like, we're like, what? He's like, we've got a 3rd star. And we're like, didn't even totally forgot Michelin were coming out because we were just like focusing on just to make sure we get this demo right. And 2, it's like, what? They've just phoned you up. They said because we weren't there. They were going to come to dinner that night. So that was back in the day where they used to come and tell you at the restaurant you've got the award. And that night we only had 4 people in the restaurant, and it was a table of 4. Paul Cunningham from Copenhagen. Yeah. He was actually eating, and we got the 3rd star that night, and then. The reason why it all got blown up was because all the world press was there. So Heston had interviews lined up after our lunch. Yeah. So then he told them all, I've just got my 3rd star. Boom, bang. I said the whole world knew about it. So by the time we came home, by the time we came back to Bray, it was just like there's TV cameras, there's everything outside the Duck.
Like bookings are just full.
Yeah, and this is the back of the time where it's not online booking. It was all done with a telephone and the book.
Yeah.
And the phone lines went down. So the first 4 days, we had no guests because nobody could get through because the phone lines crashed. So it was like our first 4 days was like we were almost quiet. We're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
You have the news reporters there, and you're like, what's just happened here?
That's brilliant. You were then made head of creative development. I mean, was that like being Willy Wonka? Like, what was the day like walking in as a creative developer chief? Yeah. And also, can you just quickly tell us like the craziest things which may never have made a plate?
Oh my goodness, that's put me on the spot.
Yeah, can you remember any crazy failures? Heston wanted it. You said this is ridiculous.
Well, I definitely wanted to do a sea urchin dessert, and I'm still not going to give up on that. And because the sea urchin,
Don't you want to do a sea urchin?
Well, Heston always wanted. He had this. He's definitely picks up on the flavour profile of violet, crystallised violets within sea urchin. I could never get it. I could never
say that again.
Yeah, so you know that you ever eaten a crystallised violet?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's sweet, but it's really floral, and it's almost like Parma violets.
Yeah.
And so that there's a flavour in that Parma violet that is in sea urchin, and
he's obsessed with that.
He was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and remind him. He will get reminded now.
Yeah.
No, I've talked about it.
He's a big listener.
And it's like so. So there is actually a flavour molecule in it, which I can't remember the top of my head what it's called, but there is a crossover of a flavour of the violet in a sea urchin, and we're always trying to make the sea urchin flavoured violet dessert, which never ever managed to cross over. As in, we never managed to get it on. So that is going to be one of my points to go. There's also another mandarin and thyme dessert that we talked about many years ago that we never got on that I want to get on. Yeah. So it's like, and going back to that creative development chief, honestly, we were seen as equal. Everybody was equal. Even just like Heston coming in, even though he was the boss and he was the man, it's like, let's just treat everybody equal. And it was like, there was no kind of like one leader. Obviously, there was loads of projects and we have to meet the demands, but it was kind of like an open forum for ideas. And I think that was the most attractive thing, and still is for the Fat Duck. Everybody, question everything, but listen to everybody's opinion. They might have an idea in there that you need to kind of like sometimes extract, or they just blot it out. What
is the creative process? Like, if he comes to you with an idea or you've got an idea, how the hell do you start to bring that into reality? You just as simple as tasting two things together. Or what is that? And then it's a lot of it, which I always explain to people when they come into this journey. Development and creative always seems like it's the glam job. It's probably the most horrific job, because to get a result is actually excruciating and pain. Yeah. And it's always about failure. It's like 1% success. And so it's going through that horrible journey, but a lot of your work is actually taken home. And a lot of your work you're doing at home. And that's the bit that people don't see. So you're always researching. And this is, I always talk about it before the social media, which I think is great, but there's nothing that can beat reading a book. Yeah. Reading a book is fascinating. And my wife hates it for me because I've got a bookshelf, which actually is one in, one out. That's the rule.
Well,
yeah, I know. Yeah. Which I'm just like, but it makes you read it.
Yeah.
And it's that whole process of reading, because our information overload now is massive. I don't think we believe we absorb it. No. And the creative process is about learning to make the mistakes and put your hand up to the mistake and being honest. Oh, that's rubbish. Yeah. Let's try again. Or let's try it that way. And also tenacity, keep on at it and take critique. Criticism is massive. Yeah. And you're always getting over critiqued, and there's a frustration there of like, am I doing anything right here? Yeah. Whereas you have to be very positive about it. Do you have bits in that journey where you're thinking, or someone is thinking, all right, we're pretty close, I reckon we've got it. Yeah. And then the critique comes and you realise you're actually much further away. And that must be a brutal process. Still to this day. Yeah. Still to this day, where you think you've got it in your head, in your mind, that is going to be amazing. Bang on. Yeah. Amazing. And then it's like, and then when you get this other opinion come in, particularly more from Heston's perspective, with that taste buds and stuff, is like, then you're like, oh my God, that's not right. That's not good. Yeah. And you're like, right, let's go again. And I think that, for me, I love that bit. Really? Okay. I love that bit. Yeah. People hate it, and I'm just like, no, let's just brush off. Yeah. Let's get going again. Get back in there. It's another day. Yeah.
Did Heston ever switch off from food? I mean, nowadays he's not as involved as he was back in the day, but like, did he? Yeah. In those heydays, ever switch off?
He never switched off. He never switched. He'd have like a stack of books also next to him. He was on things like e-gullet. I don't even remember back in the day.
Yeah.
That was the forum where people would be discussing, and he'll be having like big arguments on e-gullet at 5 a.m. about, no, this is how you cook potatoes for a chip. And it was like, but e-gullet was like the start of that process. And Relentless, he was always like, wouldn't stop in that sense. And so that encouraged everybody around him to be like-minded as well and keep on pushing. And it was like, it's tearing away that ego. And I think it was a very fascinating time. And I think it's going to come back in that sense.
Yeah.
What's the most amount of hours you ever put into one dish, like as a team?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The one that broke me, I would say almost broke me, was the Black Forest gateau. That was relentless. That was on a TV. We did it for a TV perfectionist program, and then we eventually got it onto the menu. And it was one of those ones where it just wouldn't stop. It couldn't stop. And so the way I work is very visual. And at the time, the development kitchen wasn't that big, but I had a little cupboard. It was a cupboard. Yeah. There was no windows, and it was a little room where I would plaster all my ideas of all the books, photocopy, stick them on the wall, and then create them. So it's going through all different sponges, all different creams, often chocolates, all different layers. And it's like, I think there's 14 elements in that Black Forest gateau that was all tried and tested to the point of other forms. So it's 14 times, 14 times 12. And that whole process, so like it's trying to streamline it. And it was one of those ones where you just like, you couldn't, it just took over your life.
Yeah.
And then all it was about this Black Forest gateau. And you do, it's kind of like you end up with this blinkers on. Yeah. And you just don't care about what was happening in the outside world. I just had to get this thing over the line.
Yeah.
And I think it's still standing the test of time.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
it's still there.
Seems like it was worth it. Well, Christ.
Ben, just before we sample one of your creations, we should say that it's time to shout out the greatest POS system in the world, Blink, the UK company revolutionising the POS game. Blink are tearing up the rule book, no long-term contracts, no hidden fees, and no per-device charges for just £49 a month. Can you believe that, Jocky? For unlimited devices and 24/7 UK-based support that's always there in person when you need it. Built for hospitality, by hospitality. Blink is the fastest, easiest POS system on the market. So intuitive, anyone can use it. And while others take weeks to get you up and running, with Blink, you're live in just 2 hours. So join the hospitality revolution today. I think we're signing up the wonderful Jocky in a second. Yeah. Visit Blink and see why we're a true UK success story. Ben, if
you get your first
Jocky's
month,
going to go for...
Well, Jocky, I think Greg signed off a 3-month free period for you, Jocky.
Oh, amazing.
People can have a month with the code go to Blink, I guess.
With a Q.
With a Q, and a B and an L and an I and an N, and then the Q.
For the dyslexic ones out there. Yeah. Ben, what have you created for Jocky?
I've made an...
Hitch up, I don't know.
This is the worst, yeah.
What?
No!
What do you cook for a man who's...
Have you done Sound of the Sea? Because that would be impressive.
I'm trying to do the maths of 14 times 12 on that thing. Basically, I just cooked something I wanted to eat.
Okay. Love it.
Just an ajo blanco.
Nice.
With some grapes and mint. Is that all right?
Oh, my God. I love it.
We're going to pretend... I mean, it has been, the weather's a bit nicer recently, right?
Oh, it's beautiful.
You stitched me up by wearing a scarf in here, so that
I know.
makes me look like an idiot.
Trademark.
But outside, it is a bit warmer. I felt like something a bit
It's fucking
nice.
boiling in here.
It is boiling.
Yeah.
Have I been talking too much as well?
No, not at all. You're brilliant, but it's just so hot in here.
Yeah. You chat and I'll...
Just before we move on from the Fat Duck days, before we go back, Bittersweet Symphony, memories on that?
Oh, my God. That's a blast in the past.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
We worked with the Oxford University. And on the effect of sound. Yeah. And that was obviously inspired by Sound of the Sea, but we made a candy which is basically like puff candy. Yeah. What do you call it? I call it puff candy, but I think you call it different. No, like
candy floss
with the bicarb. What do you call it? Like bonfire toffee.
Yeah, like
toffee apple.
The thing in the middle of crunchy.
That's it. Crunchy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I've forgotten the name of it.
Honeycomb.
I call it honeycomb. I call it puff candy.
Yeah, honeycomb, yeah.
Maybe it was a Scottish thing, but the idea was like the effect of sound on flavour perception. Yeah. And it was bittersweet. So that is bitter and sweet because you get the bicarb in there and we put salt in there as well. And so the effect of like the deep tones being bitter and the high tones screeching almost being sweet. So you ate the same candy, you ate the same sweet with a different sound, and it would change from bitter to sweet. The only problem with it is that people's perception of bitterness. Yeah. One in 5 people are a super taster.
Really?
So their perception of bitterness is accentuated.
Ooh.
So they have more bitter receptors.
I think that's you, Ben. I think you're a super taster.
Yeah, a lot of chefs are.
Well, he was a very successful chef.
Max Halley was a super taster.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like it's always seen as like a good
Jamie,
thing.
our engineer, is he? I don't know. No, he's shaking his head.
Yeah,
Um,
and we've continued that. So the fact that now we've got a wine experiment where you get the wine and it's done in the cellar.
Yeah.
Same wine, different colours, different sounds, different perception of the taste of the wine with the same wine.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
2014, you left. Was that just you needed a new challenge? Because you end up going to the library.
Yeah.
Brett Graham, apparently, he's a genius, but also kind of as crazy as Heston in a different way.
It was amazing. So I left the dock. I think it was time to move on. I've been there 12 years.
Yeah.
So it was time to venture on something new.
Yeah.
And then I've always known Brett. Me and Brett are buddies for a long time.
Yeah.
And I always said I'd never work for Brett. I was like, I don't want to ruin our friendship.
Yeah.
But
Did you?
No, I hope not.
No.
But I did venture into the kitchen
Yeah.
just to have a nosy around. And one thing led to another. And he's like, look, give us some support. We're looking at how we work. Is it the most efficient? We're looking at the creative process. I've got a lot on. Would you come give us a hand? So, 18 months I was there.
One restaurant of the year. You're welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah.
And he...
You're like a manager at a relegation football club.
Yeah, they bring you in.
Where they fire someone and then they're like...
You're like
bring
Neil
in and
Warnock
suddenly
or
you,
like Sam Allardyce.
survive relegation. Yeah.
Well, I hope I'm a good omen.
Yeah,
Omen.
Oh, you're like winning stars.
Yeah.
A month after a run.
Yeah.
But he was it was like almost like stepping back in time because I went into Brett's kitchen and it was like Fat Duck in the early days.
Really?
The absolute chaos, no organisation, no disrespect to what Brett was doing,
Yeah.
but it's just like it was just needed a bit of like. So I actually stepped into that world before, and so it was just like I didn't change the whole process, but I was part of that change of even just changing the a la carte from a 3-course to a 4-course.
Yeah.
So then that allowed the kitchen not to get hit in one area at the beginning. So it spread that thing, but also the guest experience was fulfilled because they had more of a choice, but it kept that a la carte feeling. And even just the way, so it was, I think Brett, and also that opened my eyes to like, hey, you don't know everything.
No.
Also that goes back to that bubble and Bray thinking that's the whole world.
Yeah.
And then we exposed to that. And I always said I'd never work in London. That was one thing I always said I would do. Yeah. Never work in London.
Well, you broke that rule, didn't you? Because then you went to go work for Gordon.
Yeah, I know.
How did that come about?
I was headhunted.
Right.
What's all that about?
Well, by the big man himself? Or?
Not by big man, by this consultant they had. And I was like, what's that, a headhunter? I was like, what's all that about? So I was working with Brett. I had no intentions of leaving. Got this call out of the blue. Interested to talk, blah, blah, blah. He wouldn't tell me who it was for until about the 3rd or 4th meeting. And then I was like, oh, okay, what's all this about? So then I investigated it further. And then it was like almost like a 3-month interview process. Jeez. I met like 8 people. I think they were indecisive of what they wanted. Yeah. And
met 8 people, but not Gordon. At that point.
I met Gordon only at the last interview.
Did you know him before or not?
Only
you guys have been sparring for years.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that nemesis almost.
Yeah.
But he saw on the last interview, and it was basically an interview of like saying, what job title do you want? And I was like, what? So
you came up with executive head of development.
Yeah, let's go for that one.
Sounds great.
Group executive head development. Yeah. And so it's quite a big mouthful. But back to the Brett thing, I think incredible. I think that guy's energy. I think what's happening now with him and Tom Spenceley and that whole team at the library is a credit to all that hard work they've done. And it's an insane place, and also the speed that they work at and efficiency in that small kitchen, the food they're producing. Yeah, insane, and especially those.
What?
You have a lucky saint. I'm turning my back on the Vienna, and I'm turning my back on it.
Really? Wasn't the one for you?
No, it's good. I just, do you not want that one?
No, you got any water?
Yeah, we do.
Sorry. Look at this.
Take this one instead.
You got mint?
No, there isn't.
I've actually got some water in my bag.
Can't have that.
I've got water in my bag.
Freddie will only drink this premium gear.
Yeah. Ash speak English.
Yeah.
Just put it out there.
Premium gear, Freddie.
Yeah. So Brett's a genius. Then you go work for Gordon. What was the job at Gordon's? Because you were looking after everything, right?
Yeah.
Like TV, food.
Yeah, so the job started just looking after kind of like, it probably started looking after kind of like a premium casual and then Michelin restaurants, so supporting where they needed. And then the job led on to more and more projects because it's like, it's one of those things like I love working hard and I love working in this job. And I always like asking above and beyond. I'm interested in other things. So then I got put onto looking after some of the TV stuff, programs, some of the books that we launched. And then half my time was looking after Gordon's stuff, and then half the time was looking after restaurant stuff. Right. And that was coming up with new concepts or talent scouting, headhunting. I was probably doing a bit of headhunting.
Yeah.
So
well, we're looking to be hunted. It's a bit late now.
Too late.
Anyway.
We've got almost no talent.
Yeah.
Yes, I was always looking up for talent because there's opportunities in the growth of the business. And
it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I love that.
So Ben, talk us through this.
That's really good, isn't it?
Just when Mr. Jocky
beautiful
goes
Marcona almonds.
Yeah.
Blitzed to shit.
Yeah.
With some water, sherry vinegar.
Yeah.
Salt.
Yeah.
But that little chemical you were talking about in the almond, I think you want to blitz it till that comes out, so it smells marzipan-y, right?
Yeah.
Let it out.
Very good.
Bit of mint and grapes.
Yeah.
I'm in June.
That's what I want. I wanted you to be in May.
Oh, fuck.
Or March, April.
Close enough.
Are we all right?
Yeah.
It's warmer.
I'm back in May now.
And I think
delicious.
That is so good, and you can do that with so many other nuts as well. Macadamia nuts, delicious because really fatty as well.
Yeah,
and it'll give you a really mouthful. And I think that's one of my favourite things that I did on a recipe development for Gordon Ramsay. And
really?
And it's in the restaurant Gordon Ramsay with the scallop dish. And we put it on Patrice Aglio Blanco puree. I developed that when I was at the library. Just different form, using different, like more of a package. Really super smooth.
Yeah.
And when you heat it a little bit, it goes a little bit thick.
Unbelievable.
Like a puree, almost.
So what do you have that with? Just by itself?
Yeah. It's nice, goes really nice with scallops or seafood.
Oh, right.
Lobsters as well.
Well.
That sweetness.
Where's the fucking lobster?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I disappoint you every week, Freddie.
Was it quite weird though, going from like obviously 3 stars, 2 stars, running basically the greatest restaurants in the country, to then working on the GP of a pizza slice in Gordon Ramsay's pizza place?
Definitely, and an insight. It was an education because I come from a background where money was not as an important thing, and GP is important, but it was never driven by GP. Whereas you go on the flip side of a business that's growing, big business, big name as well, and you get scrutinized as well, quite lightly, on your numbers. And it's like, how do you balance that with trying to keep that creative process, and then also get scrutinized on the numbers and the spend that you do. So it was a big insight and a learning curve for me as well.
I bet.
So that's why I foresee it as being a great thing in terms of what I learned from that job and that process. It gives you a different perspective of the business, because I think you have to be an all-rounder. You have to, a modern chef has to be a personality, has to be a great cook, and has to be a businessman or woman. These are the strongholds that are going to be a success.
Well, it's what Jeremy Lee was saying. 15 years ago, you could make up the price of the menu, and people wouldn't really care.
Yeah,
there was also and like put it at what feels like the right level, and the GP probably would follow somehow.
Yeah.
Whereas those days are long gone.
Long gone, because that's a bad management failure for business. And you got to respect all the people that are working for you, and also you want them to be successful. So you need to teach them.
Yeah, pass those skills on.
What's Gordon's? Because you were there for 10 years, right? Nearly.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like, let's give you more credit, because previous to that, he was struggling a bit. His father-in-law, there was a lot of things in the papers about him losing fuckloads of money.
Yeah.
Now I read last month or something, he's now like the richest fucking chef in the world.
Yeah.
Huge turnaround.
Yeah.
What are the most profitable bits of his empire?
I would say is like that premium casual brand. I think that's what particularly the world wants in terms of where he's positioning the growth of his business. Yeah. Particularly in America. Premium casual, kind of like all-day dining, fish and chips, burgers. Yeah. Those things done well to a high volume, and I think
in America, what does that look like? Has he got a chain of fast casual restaurants?
Yeah, so in America, he's got a fish and chip brand in Vegas, and he's got the steak concept, and he's got like an offshoot of the breadsheet kitchen that's in UK. It's called Ramsay's Kitchen. And he's got Hell's Kitchen concept on the back of the TV. Yeah. Honestly, the concepts are endless.
And he does like the Wellington place, doesn't he? Slightly higher end.
The steak. That's the
steak one.
GR steak, which is in Vegas, and it's like
so. He's got like 50 restaurants or something.
Yeah,
I've always said he's a bit. Don't clip this wrong, but he's a bit like Saddam Hussein in that he must have like lookalikes. How's he? He seems to be in so many places at once.
Yeah, it's like I think it's those.
How does he do that?
It's these pedigrees of I'd say these chefs that he's relentless, and he's just
never
something like Heston was on the creative side. Gordon is like in the growth of the business.
Yeah, right.
And he's also a super talent, and he's done amazing, and is doing amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just like relentless.
Yeah.
And you're like, where did they get the energy from?
Yeah.
And how come they don't stop?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's inspiring. Yeah. And it's like, it's great to see. And I think that's what we should, not everyone's like that.
No.
There's the unique people in the world that become like that, who are that. And he's got a great team behind him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
He's just opened the highest restaurant in Europe.
Yeah.
Jeremy King said last week that you should never trust a restaurant with a view on a on a high floor.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I mean, I won't make you comment on that.
No.
Anyone?
How high is his restaurant?
Don't know. Fucking
60
high.
floors, isn't it?
60 floors,
up,
yeah.
Which is,
Where
I
is
remember seeing it in the early days.
Is it in London?
Yeah, it's at Bishopgate, 22 Bishopgate.
Terrifying.
But he doesn't need any advertising.
No, he
No,
doesn't.
he doesn't.
Talking about Hell's Kitchen in Vegas.
Yeah.
You were obviously on the show. There are some brilliant clips of the Americans not understanding your accent. And you call it, I mean, that is fucking hilarious.
And it continued. So imagine in 99 when I was there in America, they didn't understand. And I still never improved my accent. And in 2016, they still weren't understanding it.
Yeah.
So, and that one came about because I never really watched the show, Hell's Kitchen.
No.
I think I've been with Gordon for about a year, and he's like turned around and says, like, 6 weeks you're coming out to Vegas. You're coming out to LA, we're going to film Hell's Kitchen. And I was like, what? I was like, what's going on here? He's like, yeah, you're going to be the sous chef in the program. And I was like, all right, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
So he shipped myself and the family out.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the day before filming, I better watch this. Yeah. So I watched it, and I was just like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
This program's mad. And then when I went onto the set, it was insane. It was really insane because it was like, and this goes back to his work ethic as well.
Yeah.
So he's producer as well on the program.
Yeah.
So he's in from first thing in the morning till last thing at night. And the filming, there was about 120 cameras on that. There's probably about 350 people working.
We've only got 3.
This was like I know, and this was like it used to be like an old, it's like warehouse.
Wow.
So, and when I did this filming for the 2 seasons, I never realized it, but they were trying to like intensify the whole experience. So normally it was 1 day filming, 1 day off. But instead of doing that, I did 6 days filming back to back. So it was over 3 months.
Yes.
And it was 6 days filming, so you had 1 day off. And it was intense. So I was in from about 7 till whenever you finish at night, 10, 11, 12, whatever was going on that day. And every day there's a service of 120 people, like guests in the restaurant. The contestants stay there. They live on set. They stay. It's like a Big Brother. So they all sleep together.
Yeah, Big Brother.
And so they're all competing with each other. And then you got this service, which is just like, it's all handwritten checks. And it's all like Gordon saying the checks out. And those guys trying to memorize it. And then still cook on gas. Plus I had that team to look after contestant-wise, but then also had the team in the back who do all the prep.
Yeah.
They had to manage as well. So there's 2 teams having to manage. And my first service was like, I was on there, so I've got Gordon on my right-hand side, saying whatnot in one ear, and then I've got an earpiece. The producer's telling me what to look out, just like help, support making the program. And then you got to deal with the contestants as well. And I was just like, what is... And the first one we did was like Gordon ripped the guy's watch off because he kept him looking at his watch and threw it in the pizza oven. And then I'm trying to fish up this melted watch in the pizza oven. And it was one of those ones that was just... It was a real insight also to how Gordon worked on TV. Everyone's done is like a live. There's not a lot of retakes.
Yeah.
It's a real professionalism, and it was like bang,
But
bang,
does he
bang.
switch it up a lot?
Yeah.
It's like...
Has to.
Yeah.
And does it. And it was a credit to... He's been in that world for many years, and he's learned how to do it. And so I learned a lot from that as well, in that perspective. But it's like that whole world is just like... It's another world, America.
Yeah.
From his brand to what it is in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, almost like A-list celebrity kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So he makes way more money over there than here.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a lot of comments on the YouTube videos. American ladies going like, I want to find Jocky. Do you get some weird like DMs on your Instagram?
No way.
Yeah, people being like, "Oh, I'm gonna do everything I can to find Jocky. I love him." all this
Really?
stuff. Yeah.
A positive perspective.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're not livid at him.
No, okay.
I was saying, do you get any like weird messages from old American fans? I mean, I know you are a married man, and your wife's sort of one of Shakira's musicians or something. Isn't
That's
that
right. Yeah. Una's my wife, and
Yeah.
she was. That's how I met her just after coming off a world tour.
Really?
She was with Shakira, and yeah, it was kind of like a meeting where it was like both of us come off this wild roadshow that we've been on for many years, and then we kind of like met. It was a blind date, believe it or not. Yeah, it was a fellow musician who introduced us. I had a choice of two, an opera singer or a violinist. But yeah, so I met her at Hicks Bar, actually. I went to. Remember Hicks Bar in, what's that street in Soho?
Yeah.
Great site, that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so why did we get to that bit? It was because,
weird messages from Americans.
Not to me, I don't look at them.
No. What about the favourite celebrity you've ever cooked for? I mean, you must have cooked for some incredible people.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but
you are.
I'm going to say it anyway. But it was, the Queen. God bless her. I don't know if she's a celebrity, but
no, she
definitely.
We cooked for the myself and Heston for the Queen for a family event at Windsor Castle.
Which is private gig.
Private gig.
Really?
We'd been to the races that day, and
they were a bit.
We did a
bevied up. The girls.
yeah.
She had a couple of sliders. Yeah.
So it was one of those. It was come about because Prince Philip had his staff party there twice at the Fat Duck.
Really?
And obviously told the Queen about the
Prince Philip knew a good thing, I think.
I think he did. Yeah, he loved his food.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he was so obsessed. He had that farm shop in Windsor and everything that he was obsessed with.
Really?
He set that farm shop up and...
What was on the menu?
Yeah, what did you cook for?
Black Forest Gateau.
Really?
We did Black Forest Gateau for dessert. And then, I can't remember the main course. It might be in the venison dish we had for the main course.
Yeah.
But I think she had the sole. Because we did a combination menu with Mark, the chef, her chef. And Heston. So we did I think it was like a 4-course meal.
Did they have somebody like tastes her food before she does or not?
No, they didn't actually. But it's like, it was really interesting because we did the event, did the thing, and then it was like, so the Queen wants to meet you, Heston, afterwards. So Heston's like, well, you come with me, Jock. And I was like, what? No way. He's like, yeah, go on. Yeah. And then so they gave us a rundown of what he's got to say to her, courtesy, and all, not courtesy, but bow. And I think you say ma'am, or your majesty at the beginning, and then ma'am afterwards. Anyway, we sat there, we went into the dining room. So I got a seat next to Prince Philip and Andrew.
Andrew, he's
good.
He's
come
off a bit.
I know. And then there was the Queen over there with Heston, and then they said, you're only going to be there for 10 minutes, so just like be courteous.
Yeah.
For about 10 minutes. We were there for an hour.
What?
Chatting away.
Chit-chatting.
Because I was cooking in submarines.
Yeah.
With part of the program. He was a submariner.
Yeah.
So we started talking about submarines, started talking to Prince Philip about the farm shop and beef and how he loves beef and the beef he loved, the extra beef.
Chinese investments Andrew was trying to sell you?
None yet.
I'd say Andrew, your relegation football manager bounce. Andrew might be the one that got away.
Yeah.
You couldn't save the victim.
No.
But it ended up with, and then when she got up, everybody else gets up. So when she got up, everybody else got up. She got up and then she left the room. And then I was just like, I didn't actually get to meet her.
Yeah.
So I was just saying goodbye to everybody. Yeah. And then next thing, it was like all these corgis. Literally, it was like a cartoon sketch. All these corgis running around. And I turned around and there she is, the Queen. She came back in to say thank you.
Whoa.
And she came, it was just like this old gracious lady, just like sparkling.
Yeah.
And I was just like, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's the Queen. And I was just fumbled. She took her hand out, shaked and said, thank you very much for this evening. It's been a pleasure, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, very cool.
And off she went with the corgis. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, mad.
And then we got into a car, left Windsor Castle, and there's like all these drunk people falling out the pub and slipping vomit. And you're like, what? That's
back to
juxtaposition.
reality.
Back to reality.
It's a mad way cooking can take you, isn't it?
I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
do you know? And I think we do forget that. And I think that is this whole journey that I've been on and still on. And the industry is like, it can take to the amazing, fascinating places. Crazy. The journeys I've had and people I've met. And I think this industry is brilliant. And I think it's a really exciting industry. It's a really exciting time. And I think we forget that. It's like it's all about hospitality. We meet great people, we have great guests, we get great opportunities, we get to travel. Yeah. That was the whole reason I started cooking, was getting out of the west coast of Scotland. And it wasn't about working in the best restaurant. It was about, I can travel with
seeing the world,
Yeah, because when I grew up in the west coast of Scotland, the whole, I got introduced to the industry because we had a lot of local hotels. They're all shut now. But there's a lot of backpackers that come to the Highlands of Scotland. And I got to meet all these people from South Africa and New Zealand. And I was like, oh my goodness, you can travel with this job, this industry? And that was my goal, was to travel. Well, and I've been very fortunate to travel.
You've done pretty well on
You've had an incredible career. We can't keep you here forever because you've got to go change the world with the Fat Duck again. But we are going to finish off with your go-to location, starting with your go-to weeknight restaurant. Where are you
go-to
heading?
weeknight restaurant.
Yeah.
My wife Una has introduced me to this one, and it's Bone Daddy's.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
believe it or not, I love ramen. I think it's a real great meal. I think it's a meal in one, that bowl. Their spicy miso ramen, I just love. But she's introduced it to me. I've never had a bad meal there, and the service is incredible. So friendly, so casual. I can't fault it.
You're a big fan, Ben?
I am actually I'm a big fan of ramen generally, and Bone Daddies.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
What about if you're having a blowout supper, celebrating something special? Where are you going?
Can I say 2 places?
Yeah, man.
I've got to say Ledbury.
Yeah.
That is a blowout, and I think I'm definitely going to go back there soon. I haven't been back for a couple of years, so the wife deserves a bit of a night out. I deserve it.
Especially they're growing their own mushrooms now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I've popped in to seen them, just eating in the kitchen, but
you want to go and sit down and have a proper.
And I think Ledbury, without a doubt, the history of there and Brett, but also that restaurant stood the test of time, and it's incredible what it's doing. And I think another one I do on holiday, and we have done for the last 4 years, is Restaurant Didi in Baltimore, West Cork, west of Ireland, West Cork. 2-star, beautiful.
Nice.
Turkish chef Ahmet Didi, who's doing incredible crossover of Turkish Irish food. So Turkish ingredient, Irish food, tasting menu, beautiful. And I think it's going to be a 3-star. This guy, attention to detail, and it's a tiny little kitchen.
Never heard.
I love it. Yeah, Didi.
Should we go for a little trip to West?
I think we should.
West Cork.
You got to go to West Cork.
Yeah.
Wow. It's one of those things I want to talk about is West Cork. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we've done Edinburgh.
Let's head out to Cork. Yeah.
Ireland. For Ireland, I never get a bad meal in Ireland. In terms of it's always fresh. Even the sandwiches in the petrol station.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
It's always freshly made, and it's always fresh food, and it's great produce in Ireland. And there's hospitality there. It's just
friendly people.
Yeah.
What about hidden gems?
So my hidden gem, I don't even think it's a hidden one anymore, but I discovered it a couple of years ago, and it's a local to me, and it's Gracie's Pizza.
Oh,
Gracie's Pizza, and mine's we only stumbled upon it from a late night trying to come home with the kids, and we needed something to eat.
Yeah.
And we found this pizza place, ate it, and I was like, oh, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And then since then, I go at least once a month with the kids. Love the New Haven. I'm disappointed, but I'm glad for them that they've opened up in Battersea Power Station. So it's no longer so much of a hidden gem.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big fan of the big floppy Neapolitana pizzas. But
they're right in your sweet spot.
Yeah. And I just love their New Haven. I think it's great. It's tiny, small.
Yeah.
Super.
And you can get the whole pizza at once. You don't have to get it slice by slice like at Gordon's.
Yeah. Who was a slice by slice?
Okay, so I don't know, maybe you've already said where you might go here, but what's your dream long weekend getaway?
Yeah, well, I've got to say it's got to be West Cork.
Yeah.
And I think for my dream holiday is you start the day, and we've got an amazing Airbnb that we found, and you can see onto a castle that's owned by Jeremy Irons.
Oh,
and it's beautiful. This castle's painted orange, looks like the sunset, and it's in the West Cork, middle of nowhere. And then we get a packed lunch, we go to the beach, and the beaches in the west of Ireland, beautiful. Into the sea, spend all day in the sea.
What's in Jocky's packed lunch?
Oh, it's mainly for the kids.
Okay.
It's hummus sandwiches, isn't it?
So hummus sandwiches
and
the jelly cake.
Yeah, the jelly cake.
We should ask meal deal, because people were getting angry in the comments that we stopped asking meal deal. But that's because we're just getting such incredible guests we don't always time.
And people refuse to answer it.
But what is your meal deal?
I don't do it.
There you go.
That's why we don't ask anyone.
We don't ask it. But then I'd finish the day at a pub. And I know I don't drink, but pubs in Ireland, cross over to shops.
Yeah.
And it's there's a couple, O'Sullivan's, in West Ireland, and it's you go there, chowders. I would have a chowder, and then you can dip into the sea afterwards. And then they've got a little shop around the back. As if it's closed, they'll take you behind the bar, and then you go into the shop, take the kids there. It's like a little sweet secret shop, and they can buy some sweets because the shop's closed at night time. And it's that whole experience of pubs in Ireland with a shop, or it's a hardware store or a normal shop. Yeah. I think that's a
more
beauty.
it's a public house, right? It's like a place that,
It's a community. It's all part of the community. That's where you get the best Guinnesses, is pubs like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty
good. And then a blowout at DD's.
Yeah.
To celebrate the trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Well, maybe we should go do a weekend away with Jock.
Yeah. Please do.
Let's do
with our new travel partners.
I'm there in August.
Yeah. You're there in August?
Yeah.
Well, we'll come visit you.
The last thing you want to see.
Yeah. Jocky, you've been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for coming in.
Oh my goodness,
it's been an absolute honour.
Amazing.
We are going to finish off with your go-to 3-course meal.
Yeah.
The greatest 3 courses you've ever had.
Yeah.
What are you having?
So, do you want this quickly, or can I take my time?
Oh, no, take your time.
Lean into it,
Yeah.
Oh, this is one I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
So it's 3 Sorry. I don't want to go too much detail.
Yeah, no.
Quenelle de brochette. Right. A quenelle de brochette. And in one particular place, I had it, Leon de Leon in Lyon, which was a famous institution restaurant. I had it many years ago, and it was one of those moments I had when I ate it. So quenelle de brochette is a pike mousse.
Yeah.
And it's served with like a crayfish bisque, and it's gratinated on the grill. Super simple. But I'd never had one before, and I didn't know what was going on there. So I got taken out for a meal. They said, you have to have this quenelle. I was like, yeah, whatever, fish mousse. Yeah, let's give it a try. Yeah. It comes out. The restaurant, you go through a revolving door, and then it's like thick velvet curtains. The menu comes out. It's just this massive, like, big menu. Yeah. And it was, I hate to say it, I sound corny, but it was a ratatouille moment. Yeah. You know, it was just there was a lot going on.
Yeah, yeah.
I was overstimulated. I was like, this is like an ultimate dining experience that I've always dreamed about, this great French brasserie. And then quenelle de brochette comes out. There's other things that came on the menu as well. It was beautiful. But it was one of those ones that I started eating, and it was like a cloud. And I was like, that flavour, I was like, oh my God, it's like what you've ever dreamed about as French gastronomy. Yeah. I had imagined what it has been like. And I just like completely went silent and ate that whole thing. And everyone was around the table going, what's wrong with Jocky?
Jocky, all right.
He's not talking anymore. Yeah. But I got lost in a quenelle de brochette.
Amazing.
Like, insane.
And pike, people don't, you don't think of pike, do you?
Yeah, no. Beautiful. Honestly, that was insane. And then for my main course, I went the whole meal because it was my first 3-star experience. And I went for a meal with Heston. Again, it was one of those research trips we went on. Yeah. And he's like, we're going to go to Paris. Dan Leppard, I don't even know the baker. Yeah. He's like, he's organised this trip because we wanted to learn about sourdough. This is like the early 2000s. The only sourdough you could get was palais and bread in the UK. Yeah, yeah. So we're like, okay, let's discover sourdough. And we met at the train station, and then Fergus and Trevor turned up as well. Ooh. And Justin from Bread. Yeah. So they all turned up, and I was like, oh my God, what's this trip? Off we went on this trip. Wow. And then Dan just proceeded to take us around all these bakeries around Paris. Like everywhere, because they were setting up St. John Bread and Wine just before they were setting up. Okay, so this is their research. We were just trying to research about bread. Yeah. Went to all these bakeries, everything. And then that night, they took us to Ducasse at the Plaza Athénée. And I was like, so I'd never been to a 3-star. And this is when the Fat Duck was 2-star. Yeah. I had a story for the Fat Duck 2-star.
Yeah, go on.
Well, when we found out we got the 2-star, we're all working away, and it was a fax that came through. Because that's when the fax came through with the list of the new stars and all the stars. Yeah. One of the girls took it off in the morning and says, oh, guys, look, we've got 2 stars. That was it. And then we just went back. We went back to work.
Back at the start,
back to work, and it was that was it. What is that? We're not going to celebrate? And it was one of those things that was like, yeah, let's just carry on. We didn't even think, we didn't forgot Michelin was coming up. Anyway, back to that. Went to the meal, the Plaza Athénée, and it was a truffle and caviar tasting menu, and I was like, so I hadn't been exposed to that much caviar and truffle in my life, and it was like there's one bowl that came out, had a cloche in it, cloche comes off, and it's just covered in this carpaccio with truffle, and then it's like truffle mashed potato underneath. Jesus. And I was just like, this is what is this? Yeah. Surrounded by these titans of the industry.
Sounds like John Williams' menu, his truffle menu.
Yeah. And that whole menu with like, the amount of caviar and truffle, and then they came to the end of the meal with the rum baba. Oh. And then the sweets that come with the marshmallows at the cut. I was just like, it was all over the top. And it was a really amazing experience, more particularly because the people around the table. Yeah. But that thing of the truffle. And then I would finish with a dessert from Neil Perry at Rockpool. Yeah. I had this dessert. It was another, I call it ratatouille moment. It was a date egg custard tart. I was like, okay, we'll try that. So it comes out, and it's just a tart on the plate. And it's kind of like egg custard, but it's kind of like almost like souffled up a little bit and brown a bit on top. And there's the dates in the base. Ate it. Again, just went silent, ate it. It was beautiful. It was warm. It was crunchy, crispy with the pastry. It was sweet with the dates. It was nice set custard with a wobble, but it had been gratinated as well, souffled up as well. So it was like everything that didn't make sense to me because I was used to a lemon tart or an egg custard tart being solid. Yeah. This is the opposite, and it was warm and it was set. So I was just like, this is unbelievable. It's one of those tarts, and this is me name dropping. At the same table, Tom Skeller was eating, and he was like, that's amazing. Next day, he went into the kitchen and did a stash at Rockpool to learn how to make the tart. Yeah, and I kicked myself to that day. Why didn't I go in? Because I was busy making, believe it or not, Black Forest gateaus for the event. Yeah. these damn gateaus.
Yeah.
And he went and learnt it. Anyway, I managed to nail the recipe 2 years ago.
Really?
So I worked out the technique and I want to get it on the menu somewhere.
There you go. That's the real way to do it.
It's beautiful.
Work it out yourself.
It's work it myself. And it's all about whisking. You whisk for 18 minutes. The egg and sugar.
I've never done anything for 18 minutes in my life.
I know.
It's incredible.
The poor KitchenAid.
Fucking hell. You're just showing off. You've been absolutely incredible, Jocky. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
By far and away the greatest ever 3-course meal we've ever heard. And your stories have been amazing. Sadly, that's obviously all we've got time for. If you're watching on YouTube, then please subscribe to the channel if any of those cameras are working. Leave us your comments below. And don't forget to check out the incredible offers from Blink and that free month with Go To Blink with a Q. If you work in the industry, we've already signed Jocky up. And I think we signed Jeremy King up last week as well. So it's all going quite well for them.
Falling like.
Yeah. Via the link in our bio. But we are going to finish off by saying, Jocky, what song do you want us to play you out with?
Oh, I had to think about this one as well. Has to be Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK.
Oh yeah, nice.
Beautiful
Has
choice.
to be.
Because that's what
It's all about anarchy. Yeah. And we'll continue to create
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Well, also get down to the Fat Duck. I mean, it's the most iconic restaurant in the country.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be getting down there.
We will.
The Jolly Boys get all the service, and we're just.
No, come on down.
No, we're real.
Yeah, we're coming down. Are you coming down, Jamie? Yeah, he's coming down. Okay.
Table of 3.
Well, let's see how this goes. And we're doing one with Heston. No?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Please come down. Let us know.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jocky. You're
Thank
an absolute
you.
legend.
Is the a la carte available now?
A la carte is available. It's 4 weeks old. And it's going to run right now all the way to August.
Okay.
And we're going to see how it goes. But it's available lunch, dinner, 6 days a week.
So get on that.
Get down there.
Booked in.
We'll see you down in Bray.
Brilliant.
Near enough.
Let's do it. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Nice
Jocky. That
one,
was
mate.
great.